I'm the provider now, so I set the rules, my wife said as she handed me a list that would change our marriage forever and force me to question everything I thought I knew about us. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. The kitchen was still dark, the sun barely creeping through the blinds, and I was half asleep, reaching for my first cup of coffee. That's when she walked in, my wife, dressed sharply for work, makeup flawless, confidence practically glowing off her. She didn't even sit down. She just placed a folded sheet of paper on the table in front of me like it was some kind of legal notice. Then she said it, calmly, clearly, like a statement of fact, not a conversation starter. I'm the provider now, so I set the rules. I blinked, waiting for a smirk, a laugh, something. But she didn't crack. Not even a twitch. She just tapped the paper. Read it before I get home, she added, grabbing her keys. This is what our household needs now. And with that, she left. No hug, no goodbye, just the sharp click of the door closing. I stared at the paper like it was radioactive. What rules? What provider? What did she mean? My hands were literally shaking as I unfolded it. My hands trembled as I unfolded that piece of paper, expecting, hoping, it was something minor. Maybe a budget plan. Maybe chores she wanted balanced differently now that her job had intensified. Something normal. Something reasonable. But the moment my eyes scanned the first line, my stomach twisted into a knot. 1. All household duties are now your responsibility until further notice. I froze. All? Like, everything? Cleaning, cooking, laundry, shopping, organizing, planning. All of it? I swallowed hard and moved to the next line. 2. You must prepare dinner daily before 7 p.m. If I'm late, leave it covered. Do not text me to ask when I'll arrive. The wording wasn't a request. It was a mandate. The kind of tone a boss uses in a corporate memo, not a wife talking to her husband. My heartbeat grew louder in my ears as I kept reading. 3. From now on, I need silence after work. I'll talk when I'm ready. Do not bring up your day unless I ask. I actually laughed out loud at that one. But it wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind that slips out when reality glitches and your brain doesn't know what else to do. Silence? Permission to speak? Was she serious? Then I saw the last line, and this one hit me so hard I had to sit down. 4. Understand your new role. Support me, follow the rules, and don't question my decisions. I've earned this position. My chest tightened. Earned this position? What position? What did she think this was? A promotion? A hierarchy? A takeover? I read the list again, and again, and again. Each time the words dug deeper into me, like hooks pulling at every insecurity I didn't even know I had. Had I failed her somehow? Had I become a burden? Was this her way of telling me I wasn't enough anymore? Or worse, was this who she had secretly been all along? For the next hour, I just sat there in silence, staring at that list like it might rearrange itself into something less cruel, less cold. But the words stayed the same. Eventually, I got up and walked around the apartment, seeing everything differently. The sink filled with dishes she used last night, the laundry basket overflowing on her side of the closet, the still unpacked box from her last business trip. Was all this my job now? Was I supposed to clean up after her like some kind of live-in assistant? And the more I thought about it, the more the anger slowly started to rise. Not explosive anger. Not yelling or throwing things. No, this was deeper. A quiet, simmering heat that builds behind the ribs and spreads. Because this wasn't about money. This wasn't about roles. This was about control. About her wanting to reshape our marriage into something entirely new, without asking, without discussing, without even considering how I felt. She'd handed me a list. Not a partnership. A list. And the worst part? I didn't recognize the person who wrote it. I must have read that list 100 times before I finally set it down. Not because I accepted it, no. But because if I kept staring at those words, I was afraid I might actually rip the paper in half. And part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to tear it up, throw it in the trash, and wait for her to come home so I could hand her the crumpled remains like a statement of rebellion. But another part of me, the quieter, more wounded part, just kept asking, why? Why would she do this to me? I walked into the living room and stared at the framed photo from our wedding day. Her smile was wide, bright, full of life. She had her hand in mine. We looked like a team, two people ready to take on the world together. Where did that version of her go? And when did this new one take her place? I tried to distract myself by tackling the dishes first. Maybe if I did one task, just one, it would help clear my head. But washing her coffee mug felt humiliating, like I'd already surrendered, like I was already falling into the role she carved out for me without my consent. By noon, I had cleaned the kitchen, vacuumed the living room, thrown in a load of laundry, and reorganized the pantry, and every second of it felt wrong. It wasn't the work itself. It was the intention behind it. It wasn't partnership. It was obedience, a word I never imagined would apply to my marriage. Around 3 p.m., I finally sat down and stared at the clock. In 4 hours, she'd be home. For hours until I had to decide who I was going to be when she walked through that door. Would I be the quiet, compliant version she seemed to expect? The one who hands her dinner at 7 p.m. sharp and whispers, yes, honey, like a butler? Or would I be the man she married, the one who believed in mutual respect, in teamwork, in actually talking things through? My thoughts were still swirling when I heard the jingle of keys outside the door. She was early. My pulse spiked. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. The door opened, slowly, almost deliberately, and she stepped inside with the same calm, controlled expression she wore that morning. Her eyes landed on the clean apartment, the folded laundry, the organized shelves. Then she looked at me with a satisfied smile, a smile that said, "Good, you're learning." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, just decisively. "I read your list," I said, my voice steady but cold. She raised an eyebrow. "And," I took a deep breath, "and we need to talk, now." Her smile faded. She wasn't expecting that. Not even close. She closed the door slowly, like she needed time to process what I just said. Her purse was still hanging off her shoulder when she turned to face me, eyes narrowing with a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Talk about what?" she asked, her voice cool, controlled, rehearsed. The same tone she probably used in boardrooms when someone dared question her strategy. I didn't raise my voice, didn't step closer, didn't try to look intimidating. I just held up the paper, the list, between two fingers. "This," I said. "We need to talk about this." Her jaw tightened, just a twitch, but enough to show she wasn't as calm as she tried to appear. "I was clear enough," she replied, walking past me and setting her purse on the counter. "You read it. You understand it. So what exactly is there to discuss?" I stared at her, stunned. "Are you serious? You think you can just hand me rules like I'm your employee? Like I work for you?" She didn't flinch. "You don't work," she said bluntly. "I do. That changes things." I felt the words hit like a slap. Not loud, but sharp, cutting deep. "So because you make more money now," I said slowly, "you think that gives you the right to control everything in this house? To control me?" She finally turned to face me fully. Arms crossed, posture straight, expression unreadable. "It's not about control," she said. "It's about efficiency, structure, balance. I provide. You maintain. It's logical." "Logical?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're talking about our marriage like it's a business transaction. And maybe," she shot back, "that's exactly what it needs to be." I felt something in my chest tighten. Not fear, not anger, but grief. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if she even loved me anymore, or if she just wanted someone to run her life the way she ran her team at work. I took a step toward her, my voice quieter now. "When did you stop seeing me as your partner?" She blinked, and for a moment, just a flash, something vulnerable flickered in her eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. "I haven't," she insisted. I just need things done. I need order. I need support. My job is demanding, and I can't come home to chaos. There is no chaos, I said. There's just life. Our life. And we figure things out together. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Together doesn't work anymore, she whispered. Those 3 words, they hurt more than the entire list. Why? I asked. What changed? Me? You? Something at work? What happened? She hesitated. Her eyes drifted away from mine, and that's when I realized she was hiding something. Not anger, not resentment, fear. A deep, quiet fear she didn't want to say out loud. But I wasn't about to let it go. Tell me the truth, I said softly. What are you so afraid of? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her breathing quickened. Her hands trembled just barely, but enough. And then, finally, she whispered, I'm afraid that if I stop controlling everything, I'll lose everything. Her words hung in the air like smoke. Thin, fragile, impossible to ignore. I'm afraid that if I stop controlling everything, I'll lose everything. For a moment, I just stood there, stunned. This wasn't the voice of the confident, unshakable woman who walked out the door that morning. This was someone scared, overwhelmed, on the verge of breaking. I took a slow breath. Lose what? I asked gently. She squeezed her eyes shut, like the question physically hurt. Everything I worked for, everything I earned. My job, my status, my reputation, my future, everything. Her voice cracked. Barely, but enough. So you decided to control me instead? I asked softly. That's not what I meant, she whispered. Then what did you mean? I stepped closer, not angry now, but honest. Human. Because this system you're trying to build, it feels like you're pushing me into a corner. Like you're trying to shape our marriage into something that fits your fears instead of your love. She opened her eyes and looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time today, and she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Her shoulders slumped. Her confident posture collapsed. She looked smaller, exhausted, like she'd been carrying something way too heavy for way too long. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, voice trembling. Everything at work is chaos. Everyone expects things from me. Everyone needs something. Every decision is on my shoulders. I come home and, she swallowed hard, and I don't know how to turn it off. I felt the tension drain from my chest, replaced by something softer. Not forgiveness yet, but understanding. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I thought you'd think I was weak, she admitted. And weakness is the one thing I can't afford right now. Not there. Not here. That last part stung. You think love is weakness? I asked. You think relying on me is weakness? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. I moved closer and took the list from her hand. She didn't resist. Then I gently set it on the counter between us. We're supposed to be a team, I said quietly. You don't have to carry everything alone. I've done that. I know what it feels like. It breaks you slowly. And you think control will protect you, but all it does is isolate you. She stared at the counter, her breath shaky. I didn't know how to ask for help, she whispered. So I tried to force it. And that pushed me away, I said. And I think you knew that. Her eyes glistened. Not quite tears, but close. I did, she admitted. And that terrified me even more. I nodded slowly. And then something unexpected happened. She reached for my hand. A small gesture. Simple. But it felt like a bridge forming across the gap that had been widening between us for months. What now? She asked, her voice barely audible. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw both the strong woman she'd become and the hurting one she tried to hide. Now, I said softly, we start talking. For real. No lists, no rules, just honesty. She exhaled, long, trembling, relieved. Okay, she whispered. I can do that. But something in my gut told me the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because she wasn't the only one who'd been hiding something. For a moment, the room felt lighter. Not healed, not yet, but no longer suffocating. She held my hand like she was afraid to let go, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were on the same side again. But that's when the guilt hit me. Heavy, sharp, relentless. Because while she'd opened up, while she'd finally torn down her walls, I still had mine. And what I'd been hiding wasn't small. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't something that could stay buried forever. I need to tell you something too, I said quietly. Her eyes lifted, soft but searching. What is it? I took a slow breath and stepped back, creating just enough space to be honest. I haven't been completely open with you these last few weeks. A flicker of worry flashed across her face. Not anger, not judgment, just fear, the same fear she confessed moments earlier. What do you mean? She asked. I looked down at the floor, at my hands, anywhere except her eyes. I didn't tell you that the company I worked for, they offered me a position back. I swallowed hard. A good one, with better pay than before. She froze. What? I forced myself to look at her. They reached out 2 weeks ago, said they wanted me to return. They apologized for cutting my department last year, said they realized it was a mistake. Her lips parted in shock. And you didn't tell me? She whispered. I shook my head. I didn't know how, or when, or even if I should. Her breathing quickened as she tried to process. Why wouldn't you tell me something like that? And here came the hardest part, the truth I'd been terrified to say. Because every time I tried to tell you, I said, voice tight, you were so stressed, so tense, so lost in work that I felt like my news would only add pressure. And then, when your promotion happened, and when you started acting like you didn't need me, I started believing maybe you didn't need me. Silence. A deep, heavy silence that filled every corner of the room. I felt useless, I continued. I felt like telling you about the job would make things worse. Like I'd be competing with you, or threatening you, or proving you wrong. And I didn't want that. Her eyes softened, but with pain, not anger. So instead, she said slowly, you stayed quiet and watched me spiral and watched our marriage strain. While sitting on something that could have changed everything, I nodded. I'm sorry, I whispered. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just avoiding the conversation, just like you were. She closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath. So where does that leave us? She asked. I stepped closer again, gently taking her hands. It leaves us with a choice, I said. Do we keep hiding from each other? Or do we start rebuilding this marriage honestly, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it scares us? Her eyes opened, and there was something new there. Not fear, not defensiveness, resolve. I don't want to lose us, she said. Her voice cracked. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I replied softly. Not if we choose each other again. Right now. She nodded slowly. Then I choose you, she whispered. No more lists, no more silence, just us. Felt like a weight lifted off the entire room. But then, just when things seemed ready to heal, her phone buzzed. One vibration, then another, then a third. She checked the screen, and her face drained of color. What's wrong? I asked, tension instantly returning. She swallowed hard. It's my boss, she whispered. He wants an emergency call. Right now. I felt my stomach drop, because her boss never called after hours, and never sent messages rapid fire like that. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She looked at me, fear in her eyes. I think something's happened at my job. Her phone kept buzzing in her hand, each vibration sharper than the last. She stared at the screen like it was a bomb, seconds from detonating. Answer it, I said softly. It's okay. I'm here. She hesitated, then tapped accept. Hello? She said, trying to sound composed. But I could hear the tremor in her voice. I couldn't hear what her boss was saying, but I didn't need to. Her expression told the entire story. First confusion, then disbelief, then fear. Real fear. She pressed her free hand against her forehead, pacing slowly across the room. No, wait, what do you mean? She whispered. Another pause. Her breathing grew fast, shallow. You can't be serious, she said. Tonight? But I didn't even, okay, I understand. Her voice broke on that last word. She ended the call and stood frozen, the phone still in her hand, her eyes distant and empty. I stepped closer. What happened? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. After a long moment, she finally whispered, My division is being cut. My heart dropped. What? They're restructuring everything, she said, her voice hollow. Half the senior staff is being evaluated. My boss wants an emergency meeting tonight to discuss my placement. She swallowed hard. That usually means one thing. I shook my head. No, you don't know that. She let out a humorless laugh. I've seen this happen before. I've been the one making those calls to other people. When they say placement, they don't mean promotion. They mean replacement. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands. All this time, she whispered, I thought I was secure, untouchable. Her voice cracked. And now I might not even have a job tomorrow. I sat beside her. She didn't push me away this time. She just leaned into me like someone finally too tired to pretend. I built my entire identity around that job, she said. My confidence, my status, my worth. And now I don't know who I am without it. I gently lifted her chin so she would look at me. You're my wife, I said quietly. You're the woman who pushes herself harder than anyone I know. The woman who fought her way to the top, who built herself from the ground up. You're not your job, and you're not alone. Her eyes filled with tears, the kind she'd never allow herself to show at the office. It's all falling apart, she whispered. My control, my plans, everything. Then let it fall apart, I said, and we'll rebuild it together, stronger. She hugged me then, tight, desperate, vulnerable, like she was afraid I might disappear if she let go. After a moment, she pulled back and wiped her eyes. I don't know what's going to happen on that call, she said quietly, but I'm afraid. I know, I said, and whatever happens, we face it side by side. She nodded, slowly, and for the first time all day, she looked like she believed it. She stood up, took a deep breath, and grabbed her laptop. I need to join the meeting, she said. Her hands were still shaking. Then let's do it together, I replied, placing my hand on hers. She managed a small, fragile smile. But just as she opened her laptop, an email notification popped up. Urgent. Division restructure notice, mandatory attendance. Her eyes widened as she clicked it open. Then her face went white. What is it? I asked. She turned the screen toward me, and I saw it. A full list of employees being transitioned out of the company. Her name was on it. She'd already been let go, before the call even started. For a long moment, she didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. She just stared at her own name on that list like it couldn't possibly be real. Like if she looked long enough, it might vanish and everything would snap back to normal. But it didn't. Her name stayed there, cold, final, undeniable. She whispered, voice barely audible. I'm already fired. The words cracked through the room like lightning. I didn't even get to speak, she said numbly. They didn't even give me a chance. She let out a choked breath. They sent this before the meeting, before they even talked to me. I moved closer, but she didn't seem to notice. Her entire world had just collapsed in the span of seconds. I gave them everything, she whispered, staring ahead at nothing. I worked late. I sacrificed weekends. I skipped holidays. I put that job above myself, above us. Her voice broke. I thought if I gave them my life, they'd at least respect me. And they didn't even look me in the eye. Her shoulders shook, not from anger, but from heartbreak. She slowly sank onto the floor, her back against the couch, hands trembling violently as she tried to steady herself. It's over, she said. My career, my position, The thing I built for 10 years. A tear slid down her cheek. I don't know who I am without it. I knelt beside her. You're still you, I said softly. You're still strong, still brilliant, still worthy. One job doesn't erase that. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. You don't understand, she whispered. That job was my identity, my purpose, my value, and now I feel empty, like I'm nothing. I cupped her face gently. You're not nothing. You're my wife. You're a human being. Not a title. Not a paycheck. Not a position. She closed her eyes and leaned into my hand, like she'd finally reached the point where she couldn't pretend to be invincible anymore. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to be less. How to be vulnerable. You don't have to do it alone, I said. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She opened her eyes, red, trembling, devastated. And for the first time in years, she didn't try to hide it. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing against my shoulder, gripping me like I was the only solid thing left in her world. I held her tighter. Let it out, I whispered. All of it. I've got you. Minutes passed. Maybe 20. Maybe 30. Eventually, her sobs softened into quiet shivers. She pulled back slightly, wiping her face. What do we do now? She asked, her voice hoarse, broken. I took a deep breath. And for the first time in this entire journey, for the first time today, for the first time in months, I felt clarity. We rebuild, I said, together, as equals, not as breadwinner and supporter, not as manager and subordinate, but as us. She looked at me, truly looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I fell in love with, not the one hardened by pressure, not the one armored by work, not the one consumed by control, but the real her. And then she whispered the words I'd been waiting to hear for so long. Then help me start over. I squeezed her hand. Always. But before I could say more, her laptop chimed again. A new email. She flinched. Do you want to open it? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. She clicked the message. Her eyes moved across the screen, and suddenly her expression changed. Confusion, surprise, shock. She slowly turned the screen toward me. The email wasn't from her employer. It was from my old company, and the subject line read, Offer update, position adjusted, urgent.